Okay, let's get started drawing a sidewalk in two-point perspective. The first thing that I've done so far is I've divided the paper in half, both horizontally and vertically. It's important to remember when dividing the paper in half horizontally and vertically, not to measure from the table, but it's actually to measure from the paper. When you do that, you divide the paper in half, simply make a dot, and then draw a horizontal line and then a vertical line. It's also important to make a dot, not a dash. A dot gives you a variant, a number of different points to line it up on. You want a single point. So let's go ahead and get started with our sidewalk, which is going to be in two-point perspective. It's going to kind of look like the letter V. Now we don't want to go all the way to the bottom of our paper. We want to have a little bit of some space for the curb. So I'm going to measure approximately, I don't know, finger's width up from the bottom, and I've made a dot. This is going to be the bottom line of our sidewalk, but not yet the curb. Now I'm going to simply connect to the vanishing point on either side. I have connected to the left vanishing point over here. I'm going to rotate my T-square until I hit the dot. I'm going to repeat the same process on the opposite side, putting my T-square at the dot and rotating until I get that center dot and drawing a dark line. Now my paper is 12 by 18. So for my sidewalk thickness, I'm going to choose about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to again measure on the paper. I'm going to measure up from that bottom point here about 1.5 inches. I'm going to put that dot on the center line right there. That's going to be my largest sidewalk block, that first block. Now again, I'm going to place my T-square at the vanishing point. I'm going to rotate my T-square until I encounter that second dot. Now this time, I'm not going to stop at the dot when I draw my line. I'm going to continuously draw and stop when I hit that line that I've drawn. I'm going to repeat the same process on the opposite side, putting my pencil on the vanishing point and rotating my T-square until I encounter the dot. And then I'm simply going to draw across. Now what I've done is I've created my first sidewalk block, that closest block to me. I don't need that center line going through the sidewalk block, so I'm going to erase it. Now it's time to measure the rest of the sidewalk blocks. We know in perspective that things that get closer to the vanishing point get smaller and smaller. Therefore, this is our largest block. You could measure with a ruler, measure that, and subtract perhaps 1/4 inch or so each time, or you can measure with your fingers. You know that this first block is your largest, so then I measure with my fingers, slide it over, and then gather my fingers just a little bit, making a dot. I can continue that process, moving up, making each one just a little bit smaller. Now I've made dots, and again, it's important to make dots, not dashes. A dash gives you a variant. Now in order to make my project look really appealing, I'm going to make it symmetrical. To make it symmetrical, there's a really easy step. Without measuring, I'm going to use my T-square to make the dots place exactly in the same place on both sides. I'm going to put my T-square on the side, holding it horizontally. I'm going to slide my T-square up. Every time I hit a dot on the right, I'm going to draw that dot on the left. Slide it up, I encounter a dot, I place it on the opposite side. Slide my T-square up, every time I encounter a dot, I place it on the opposite side. Slide it up, slide it up, keep sliding it up until I reach that last dot. Now it's time to draw the sidewalk blocks. There's only 3 types of lines that you can make in perspective. You can make a line vertically, horizontally, like the horizon, or to the vanishing point. Now, in two-point perspective, buildings on the right side of a building goes to the right vanishing point, the left side of a building goes to the left vanishing point. It's fairly simple. The sidewalk is an exception to the rule. The sidewalk is going to go to the opposite vanishing point. So let's see how that looks. What we're going to do is we're going to put the T-square over here on the left. I've placed it at the left vanishing point. And then I'm going to rotate my T-square, just like a clock rotates, tick, 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 stop, and as soon as I encounter a dot. When I encounter a dot, I'm going to draw that line back to the vanishing point. Okay, I'm going to repeat the same process on the opposite side. I'm going to line up my T-square with the dot. I'm going to rotate my T-square until I encounter a dot, and then I'm going to draw a line between the two lines. Careful each time to line it up with the vanishing point. Now I've got a great sidewalk. It's very flat. When you're drawing in two-point perspective, you want to make things look real and dimensional. So we're going to add a curb to make it look very realistic. I'm going to make myself a dot about, I don't know, maybe a centimeter, quarter of an inch down from the center. It's important that it's on that center line. Now I know as soon as I encounter a dot, I'm going to make a line to it. So I'm going to put my T-square over here on the left. I'm going to rotate it until I encounter the dot. Draw a line. Again, on the right side, same process. Line it up with the T-square, rotate it until I hit the dot. When I hit the dot, I'm going to stop. Now I'm going to start drawing the lines for the curb. Anytime I encounter a line from the sidewalk, I'm going to create a curb line. Now, I have three choices of lines. It's either vertical, a horizontal, or going to the vanishing point. Well, it wouldn't make sense to go to the vanishing point because then it would just be a continuation. It certainly wouldn't make sense as a horizontal line. That would be very peculiar. But as a vertical line, it adds a lot of dimension.